So this version of the BLEEDZERKER is a culmination of like all the 3 builds that we had posted before, where we have the statting for like giga damage BLEEDZERKER with the rage generation to support no flay or no builder at all in the build, combined with the Skullbreaker style that makes stunning enemies deal a bunch of bleed damage to them, and then if you're berserk while you do it, you add to the bleed based off the damage you just bled out from them without actually taking the bleed off at all. So pretty cool style. We've been fairly comfortably farming like 60s, like the low 60s with this build so far in Nightmare tier, so that's not too bad. But how it looks on the talent tree is, you unfortunately do have to put 2 points into your builder no matter what, because you just can't access core without it. So you got to put 2 points here. You can swap to Flay for boss battles, but sometimes it doesn't really matter. If you're gonna fighting a world boss and you actually want to do damage, you probably switch to a little bit of a different build anyway. So come down here, big points in Rend, with Enhanced Rend and Furious Rend. Now, since you don't have Flay to put vulnerable on the target, you have to take 2 points in pressure point in case your vulnerable ever falls off. I would love it if it gave you a builder, a spender, 4 talent points, and an ult. That would be really fun. That would be awesome. Or 4 skill abilities and an ult. That'd be so nice instead of having 4 abilities that you have to either choose to take or not take an ult, but whatever. Maybe we'll get that later on, where you always have your builder, you always have your spender, you always have 4 abilities, and you have an ult. That'd be really, really cool. But anyway, you have to take this just to make sure that you have the chance to get vulnerability back on a target if it falls off. So with this one, you're taking Stomp, and you're doing reduces the cooldown of your ultimate for each enemy damaged by ground stomp to help feed the CD reduction of your ult. I'm using Imposing Presence for 5% life. That is fine to use, but the main reason I'm using that is just so I can have 10k life on my character. If I wasn't using Imposing Presence, I might just take it out, but then I'd have less life, right? I could put it in like another point and pressure point, but that's honestly just like, I just want to see 10k life on my character. That's extra life is great, but yeah, I mean, you can put it in pressure point. I'm taking all through Rallying Cry to get Tactical Rallying Cry for generating Fury instantly and giving you additional resource generation. I'm getting +4 ranks of both shouts from my chest piece currently. But yeah, we want Rallying Cry all the way through. We want Fury generation on challenging shouts, so you get more life and Fury whenever something hits you. That amount of Fury gets scaled by Rallying Cry, of course. I'm taking War Cry, scaling through to more damage when there's more enemies on War Cry. That could easily be Mighty War Cry, or it could easily be you take the point out and I just put it here, and that'd be fine too. It's fine. It's all good. Either one's fine, or I could just take that, right? Because vulnerable makes so much more of a difference than 10% damage on a target anyway. I do Booming Voice for shout increased duration. I do Raid Leader for the healing on shouts. I do Aggressive Resistance just to get to while berserking, your Fury generation is increased by 18%. Very nice. One of the things I don't like about the build right now is I don't have quite enough Berserk uptime. But I took this thing out of my Paragon because I felt like I wasn't getting enough value out of it. This guy, Blood Rage. I took some points out of it. I may go back into it eventually, but I feel like I wanted to get a couple more rare nodes because this thing just wasn't proccing super consistently. And since we don't have a builder anymore, I don't get to have Berserk from like Lunging Strike, so I don't love that. But I mean, I'm still Berserk during Wrath of Berserker. I'm still Berserk during my actual War Cry, so it's all good. I get 3 points in this No Mercy due to my amulet, so I can put those points somewhere else. But I definitely want crit chance against slowed enemies. Taking Pit Fighter for more damage against close enemies, less damage taken from distant enemies. You take 1 point in Hamstring for making your bleeds apply a slow, so now you can scale your damage off of damage to slowed and damage to CC'd. Bleeding effects also increase damage to vulnerable enemies, and everything is vulnerable. Ideally, you're stacking a ton of vulnerable damage as it is. We have Thick Skin to generate some Fortify when we get hit. We have Counter Offensive to do more damage while fortified. And we have damage while fortified in our glyphs. Wait, not in our glyphs, but in our Paragon at least now too, which is cool. It might be in our glyphs as well. I don't think so, but that'd be fun if we did. Heavy-handed is extra crit damage. We have 1 point in Maximum Fury to get access to healing 9% of our maximum life when we spend 100 Fury. And we spend and generate a lot of Fury. Even though we don't have a builder, we don't need it because we just pump. This is one of those ways we generate more Fury with Wrath of Berserker. While Wrath of Berserker is active, every 50 Fury you spend increases the damage bonus by 25%, and you also gain 20% movement speed and 30% Fury generation, so that's pretty big. Then, of course, we take 1 point in Gushing Wounds to make it so our bleeds can crit. Their chance to crit and crit damage is based off of our character's crit chance and crit damage. The weird thing is, I feel like crit damage to vulnerable targets or things like that doesn't work the same. So, and I also fear that this talent doesn't work the same either. So, crit chance against slow to mobilize or whatever, I worry that doesn't affect Gushing Wounds properly, because your character's crit chance is what it's being based off of. But I still have 43% crit chance, so it's okay. But I don't have like the full like 57% crit chance I would have from my glyph and from my talent. So I'm not sure if it's working that way. Maybe if it's not supposed to work that way, Blizzard can fix it. So like your actual just crit chance against the enemy is what Gushing Wounds takes that from, rather than your critical strike damage bonus and your critical strike chance on your character, right? So it's a little bit different. That's what we're rocking right there. Paragons, I think this is pretty similar to what we base it off of from our other video where we did our Paragon respec, which is on YouTube. We've added to it, of course, and we will continue to add to it, but that's what we're rocking right now. And my glyphs are Bloodfeeder, Disembowel, Exploit, Territorial, Wrath, and Martial. Wrath is huge for Fury gain as well. Skills that critically strike generate 3 Fury, so when we're whoosh rending an entire pack and they all get rended, that's beautiful. DJ Dark Reflex, big flex for the Prime, and Centra, thanks for the Prime as well, man. Appreciate it, dude. You definitely have options for having more berserking through chains. The problem with that is, like, the way that you build a character in this game is so neat. There's always like a push-pull, pros and cons to your setup. Kick, charge, all that stuff does not work nearly as well as Stomp, for the reason of it doesn't reduce the cooldown of my ultimate, which is huge, and it also doesn't help me apply an on-demand stun that chunks my bleeds from the build. So, yeah. You have lots of cool options, but it would lose out on other things which are important. So, just to go through the gear as well, we've got the helmet. Now, I have a better helmet than this one that I had a little bit more cooldown reduction on, but we swapped to this other helmet because I don't want to change my enchant yet. So, and that other helmet had basic attacks give you damage reduction. Obviously, we don't have a basic attack, so we decided to put damage reduction for nearby bleeding enemies, which is max rolled, which is cool. Our chest piece is the same chest piece. Plus 4 ranks of Rallying Cry, Challenging Shout, close damage reduction. It does have 14% damage on it. I would much rather that be like something defensive like Life or something like that. But I like the double shouts, so we're using that for now. We can upgrade that though at some point. My gloves are the Edgemaster imprinted gloves with 4 ranks of Rend. They have all 3 cool stats. They have crit chance, they have attack speed, both are well rolled. The lucky hit's a little bit low rolled, and we don't really need lucky hit that bad, but it's a cool pair of gloves, so we're still wearing them. We've got the legs. I'd like for them to have some kind of life on them, but they're not a bad pair, that's for sure. Distant reduction, all stats is nice. Damage reduction from things that are bleeding is good. Damage reduction while fortified is awesome. And we have those with the Berserk. Gives me a chance to lucky hit fortify on myself, which is nice. So this is where you need to use War Stomp, right? This is what we're talking about. Is that lucky hits, direct damage against bleeding enemies has a chance to stun them. So that's one stun that we can do. And again, this is all part of like the sort of 3 aspect setup that we use. They have movement speed, fury cost reduction. It's awesome. All stat strength is good too. Could have some berserking duration on those. That'd be nice, but we need fury cost reduction. So my mace, we have the overcapping rage, gives me damage when we overcap rage a lot. This has a perfectly rolled crit strike damage, good rolled vuln. Okay, well, max rolled damage to CC'd and all stats. All stats on a weapon is not really where I want it, but we need all stats to make my Paragon work. And decent eye level, upgradable, but not bad at all. We have on my two one-handers, we have vuln, crit, damage over time, and strength. That's fine. It'd be nice if we had core, but damage over time is fine. But we want crit, vuln, main stat, core ideally, I think. But here we have ripping, right? Whenever you deal damage while berserking, you inflict percent of this as base damage, right? Percent of the base damage as a bleed. So you don't do a lot of base damage as Rend, but it does kind of stack up. But what does inflict a good amount of damage is when you stack your bleeds and you stun something, and stunning a bleeding enemy deals a chunk of the total bleeding amount to them as physical damage, and then that gets Berserk Ripping applied to it as well. So you have a gigantic bleed stack, you stun them while enraged, and it goes ka-chung, and it chunks this big amount of damage, and then adds that damage back to them as a bleed afterwards. So that's where the combo comes in, right? So you're war stomping or ground stomping to do that on demand, but you're also randomly stunning things too. So you notice when you're just swinging your cleaves around, mobs will get stunned, they'll lose a chunk of their health, and if you're berserk while that happens, they oftentimes will just get deleted as a result of that, which is really cool. We've got my same old weapon, core, strength, crit, vuln, like ideal actual stat things, but not necessarily ideal rolls. Core damage could go way up, crit damage could go way up, vuln damage could go way up, so a decent weapon, but it could be upgraded too. And we've got, my rings are pretty neat. We've got vuln damage. We pulled the lucky hit off the rings. That's a big difference from the actual like super invested stun build. We have vuln damage, which is max rolled, resource generation well rolled, crit damage okay rolled, and crit strike damage low rolled, but it is what it is. Then we put bold chieftains on that one to make our shouts have a lower cooldown, especially when we shout with a bunch of enemies around. This one is the same thing. Crit damage, crit chance, resource generation, vuln damage, and I finally got a 4 out of 4 shout skills generate fury. So my shout skills generate 4 fury per second, not counting all the bonus resource generation we have from my talents and from these rings. My necklace is pretty cool. Where it would be better is if it had defensive stats on there. But it has ranks of no mercy, which is 9% crit to bleeding targets, 12% cooldown reduction, 20% fury cost reduction. It used to have willpower on it. We got enough willpower that we were able to roll that off. Now 20% fury cost reduction is huge, and it has armor. And we put on a max roll disobedience to make it give us 75% armor when fully stacked, and we stack armor pretty quick because we're bleeding a bunch of targets. Every like tick of bleed gives me a stack of disobedience. Pretty cool. Scarp, thank you so much, man. Big flex for you. Appreciate it, dude. Thank you, man. So that's where the build is at right now. So yeah, we've incorporated the stats, like the heavy just damage stats of BLEEDZERKER, with the aspects of the Skullbreaker Zerker, with the removal of a basic attack to do stomp for the no basic attack, like ascended BLEEDZERKER. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. That's the whole setup right now. So that's what we're blasting dungeons with. Weapons, again, I have Limitless Rage, so overcapping my rage gives me damage on the two-hander. We have Ripping and Skullbreakers on the two little one-handers, and then on the two-hander we have attack speed on critical strikes with core skills. Love the Skull Crack Anemia Ripping combo. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. You'll see elites just get deleted. The thing is, if you're not enraged when you stun them, it doesn't do as much damage. Or berserk. I use these wild terms talking about rage and enrage, right? So yeah, if you're playing Barbarian, you need to try this accelerated weapon thing. It changes the game. Yeah. You can highlight that and just like, you can like publish that highlight too, Quaylen. That'd be good. That way people can see it. But that's the gear overview right now. And of course we're using red gems for more HP, just because I'm trying it out again. And I'm using purple gems because I'm concerned that crit damage to vulnerable targets does not count as your character's crit damage, therefore it's only going to scale the initial hit of Rend and not the bleed. This helmet right here. You need cooldown reduction on the helmet. I'd like to have life on the helmet. I'd like to have total armor on the helmet. This is a good helmet, just needs a better CDR roll. You must have cooldown reduction on your helmet and your neck. You must have resource generation on your rings. You can also get crit on the rings, vulnerable damage on the rings. Like, this is an ideal ring for me. Crit damage, resource, vuln. Those are great. We have 2 of them.